When childhood ends too soon, the hidden cost of growing up too fast. How can we protect young people from carrying burdens they were never meant to carry alone? Good day, dear friends. Welcome to Nurture and Thrive Therapy, where we explore practical conversations that help us understand ourselves, strengthen our relationships, and build healthier families and communities. Today, I want us to begin with a simple reflection. Have you ever looked back at the period of your life and realized that you were carrying things you did not fully understand at the time? Maybe you were trying to be strong when you actually needed support. Maybe you were trying to solve problems that were much bigger than your age. Maybe people around you admired how well you handled things, but very few people stopped to ask an important question. Who was supporting you while you were supporting everyone else? For some young people, this experience begins earlier than many adults realize. They learn how to adjust quickly. They learn how to hide worries. They learn how to become dependable. And because they appear to be coping, the people around them may assume they are doing well. But sometimes, what looks like strength is actually a young people or young person trying their best to survive a situation that requires more support. Growing up is a natural part of life. Every child eventually becomes a teenager, and every teenager eventually moves toward adulthood. With that journey comes increasing responsibility, and this is important. Young people need responsibility. They need opportunities to learn. They need to contribute. They need to develop confidence in their abilities. A teenager who learns to complete tasks, make thoughtful decisions, respect commitments, and consider the needs of others is developing important qualities for life. Responsibility is never the enemy. Responsibility is part of growth. But today, we need to discuss something deeper, because there's a difference between helping a young person grow and asking a young person to carry what they were never meant to carry alone. Sometimes the difference is difficult to notice. A young person may look organized, they may look independent, they may rarely complain, they may even be described as the mature one. But maturity has different forms. There's the maturity that comes from healthy guidance, encouragement, and learning. And there is another type of maturity that develops because a young person feels they cannot afford to fall apart. That second type deserves our attention as adults. Not because every responsible teenager is struggling, but because they need a wiser adult support to do better. Let's look at the difference between responsibility and burden. One of the reasons this topic is often misunderstood is because responsibility and burden can look very similar from the outside. For instance, two young people may both be helping their families. Two teenagers may both be working hard. Two adolescents may both appear independent, but the reason behind their actions may be completely different. One may be learning and growing. The other may be carrying a weight they do not know how to express. That is why we, as adults, must look beyond teenagers' behavior and begin to understand the experience behind their behavior. Because sometimes the same action can come from two different places. A teenager helping at home may be developing confidence and a sense of contribution that is healthy. But the teenager who feels that everything will collapse if they stop helping will be carrying an emotional burden. The difference is not always what they do. Sometimes it is what they believe will happen if they don't do it. A healthy responsibility says, I am learning how to contribute. But an unhealthy burden says, everything depends on me. A healthy responsibility says, I can ask for guidance when I need it. But an unhealthy burden says, I must figure everything out alone. A healthy responsibility allows a young person to grow while still receiving support. An unhealthy burden, on the other hand, makes a young person feel they must become the support system for everyone else. Dear friends, this is why we must be careful with the way we praise young people. Sometimes, without realizing it, our words can encourage them to hide their struggles. A teenager is always described as the strong one, the responsible one, the one who never gives trouble. Those words may sound positive, and often they come from love. But imagine a young person hearing this repeatedly. Over time, they may begin to have belief in thoughts such as, if I struggle, I'll disappoint people. If I need help, I am no longer the person everyone expects me to be. I must continue being strong even when I'm tired. And this is where we need wisdom. Because every young person deserves to experience something beyond being useful. They deserve to experience being cared for. A teenager is not only a future adult. A teenager is also a person who is still developing. They are still learning how to understand emotions. They are still learning how to make decisions. They are still discovering their identity, strengths, values, and place in the world. While they need opportunities to contribute, they also need permission to learn. They need adults who can say, you are growing, but you don't have to carry everything alone. We appreciate your help, but your value is not only in what you do for others. You can be responsible and still ask for support. These messages from caring adults may seem simple, but for many young people, they can be life-changing. The hidden side of the strong child. Let's talk about the phrase many people use, the strong child. Many families have one, the child who seems to understand everything, the child who adjusts quickly, the child who rarely complains, the child who tries not to add pressure to an already difficult situation. Sometimes this trend comes from healthy confidence, but sometimes it comes from learning too early that there is no space to be vulnerable. And vulnerability is never a failure. A young person who says, I am worried, I don't understand, I need help, is not showing weakness. They are showing trust. The goal of parenting, mentoring, teaching, and counseling is not to raise young people who never need anyone. The goal is rather to raise young people who know that support exists when they need it. When we talk about young people carrying too much, it is because it is important to understand something. In most cases, this does not happen because adults intentionally want to place unnecessary weight on them. Many times it develops gradually. It can happen because of family circumstances. It can happen because of cultural expectations. It can even happen because of financial difficulties. It can happen because adults themselves are struggling and do not realize how much a young person is absorbing. And sometimes it happens because we misunderstand that or what maturity really means. Let's look at this from the perspective of family circumstances. Every family goes through different seasons. Some families experience financial challenges, some experience illness, some experience separation, loss, or major life changes. During difficult periods, young people may naturally want to help, and there is something beautiful about that. A teenager who says, "How can I help?" shows compassion. A young person who cares about the family is demonstrating empathy. But we must be careful that helping does not mean or become carrying. There is a difference between "I want to support my family" and "my family cannot survive unless I fix everything." While the first statement develops compassion, the second creates pressure that no young person should carry alone. Now, the cultural expectations. Culture plays an important role in shaping how we raise young people. Many cultures value respect, responsibility, sacrifice, and family contribution. These are meaningful values because they help build strong communities. However, every good value needs balance. Responsibility without support can become pressure. Respect without emotional safety can become silence. Independence without guidance can become isolation. Our goal is not to remove values that strengthen families. Our goal is to ensure that those values are practiced in ways that protect the emotional well-being of young people. Now, financial realities. For many families around the world, especially in challenging economic situations, teenagers may become aware of adult concerns very early. They may hear conversations about money. They may see the struggles happening around them. They may want to reduce the pressure on their parents or caregivers. Their desire to help is understandable, but adults must remember that a teenager can understand the family's challenges without becoming responsible for solving adult problems. A young person can be aware of difficulty without carrying the emotional burden of that difficulty every day. This distinction matters because when young people constantly feel responsible for problems beyond their control, it can affect how they see themselves. They may begin measuring their worth by how much they can do for others. And every young person needs to know that your value is not only in what you provide. Your value exists because you are a human being worthy of care. When praise hides a need for support. One of the most interesting things about growing up too fast is that it can sometimes receive positive attention. A teenager may receive praise because they are dependable. A young person may be admired because they rarely complain. A student may be celebrated because they seem to handle pressure easily. And again, appreciation is not wrong. Young people need encouragement, but encouragement should not become a reason to stop checking on them. The question should not only be, how much can this young person handle? The question should also include, how supported is this young person while handling it? Because strength without support can become exhaustion. Independence without connection can become loneliness. Responsibility without care can become a heavy emotional load. Here is a reflection for adults such as parents, teachers, caregivers, mentors, and leaders. Today, we may need to ask ourselves a gentle question. Have we praised a young person for being strong while forgetting to ask whether they needed support? This is not a question of blame. It is a question of awareness. Because sometimes the young person who receives the most praise is the one who needs the most encouragement to say, I also need help sometimes. Dear friends, now that we understand the difference between responsibility and burden, the next important question is, what can we do differently? How can we raise, teach, and support young people who are responsible, capable, and prepared for life without making them feel that they must carry the weight of the world alone? The answer begins with balance. Young people do not need adults who remove every challenge from their path. They need adults who work with them through challenges. There is a difference. Removing every responsibility can prevent growth, but placing every responsibility on a young person can prevent healthy development too. The goal is not to create a life without challenges, but to ensure young people have support while facing challenges. I'll quickly share with you the practical ways you can support young people who are responsible, capable, and prepared for life without making them feel that they must carry the weight of all ugly situations around them alone. The first is, teach responsibility with guidance. Responsibility becomes healthy when young people understand that learning is a process. A teenager who makes mistakes should not immediately feel like they have failed everyone. A teenager learning independence should still have someone to ask questions. A teenager taking on new responsibilities should still know that he or she is allowed to learn. Adults sometimes forget that the purpose of teaching responsibility is not to prove whether a young person can manage everything alone. The purpose is definitely to help them gradually develop the confidence and skills they need in future, or skills they will need in the future. The second way to support younger, responsible people is to create space for honest conversations. Many young people do not open up because they believe the conversation will create more problems. Some fear disappointing their parents. Some fear being judged. Some fear losing the image of being the strong one. This is why emotional safety matters. Sometimes the most powerful question an adult can ask a teenager in school, for instance, is not, how are your grades? Or, have you completed your responsibilities? Sometimes it should simply be, how are you really doing? And when a young person answers honestly, the first response should not always be correction. Because sometimes they need to know if they can trust you enough to share their reality with you. And your first response as an adult should be, thank you for trusting me enough to share this. Knowing that connection should come before correction. Dear friends, another way to support responsible teenagers is appreciate who they are, not only what they do. This is a very important lesson. Young people should know they are valuable beyond their achievements, beyond their academic results, beyond their usefulness, beyond how much they help others. A teenager should not only hear, you make us proud because you perform well. They should also hear things like, we are proud of you because you are you. We're proud of you because of who you are. This is what it is, because when young people believe their worth depends only on what they accomplish, they may become afraid to rest. They may become afraid to struggle. They may become afraid to ask for help. I want you to know that healthy development requires young people to know that they are loved even while they are still growing. The next thing you should do as a supportive adult is to allow young people to experience age-appropriate growth. Growing up is a journey. A teenager does not need to become an adult overnight. They need opportunities to learn, opportunity to explore, to make mistakes, receive guidance, discover their strengths, and build confidence. Mistakes are not always signs of failures, like I mentioned earlier. Sometimes they are part of learning. A young person who is never allowed to make small mistakes may struggle when faced with bigger decisions later. Guidance does not mean controlling every of their steps. It simply means being present enough to help them find their way in case they lose one. Here is my message to teenagers. To every young person listening today, I want you to remember something important. Being responsible is a beautiful quality. Caring about others is a beautiful quality. Wanting to contribute is a beautiful quality. But please remember, you do not have to carry everything alone to prove that you are strong. Asking for support does not reduce your value. Needing guidance does not mean you are weak. Growing slowly does not mean you are behind. You are still becoming, and becoming takes time. My message to parents, caregivers, and mentors. Dear parents, caregivers, teachers, and mentors, the young people in our lives do not only need our expectations. They need our presence. They need boundaries. They need encouragement. They need correction when necessary. But they also need reassurance that they do not have to earn their place in our hearts by being perfect, useful, or endlessly strong. Sometimes the greatest gift we can give a young person is the confidence to say, or allowing them to own the confidence to say, I can try, I can learn, I can ask for help. I don't have to do this alone. Friends, as we come to the end of today's conversation, I would like to leave you with one final thought. Childhood and adolescence are not races to adulthood. They are seasons of growth. Every young person deserves the opportunity to learn responsibility without losing the freedom to keep growing. Every young person deserves guidance without fear, encouragement without impossible expectations, correction without rejection, responsibility without emotional isolation. When we create environments when young people know they can learn, ask questions, make mistakes, and seek support, we are not making them weak. We are helping them become emotionally healthy adults who will one day extend that same compassion to others. Whether you are a parent, teacher, counselor, caregiver, mentor, faith leader, or simply someone who cares about the next generation, remember this. Sometimes the greatest gift we can give a young person is not another solution. It is the reassuring presence of an adult who says, you don't have to carry this alone. If today's conversation has helped you see young people from a new perspective, I encourage you to share it with someone else. Please share this with others like a parent, a teacher, a caregiver, a mentor, or even a young person who needs to know that asking for support is not a sign of weakness. Together, we can build homes, schools, workplaces, communities, and society where young people are equipped to grow, not pressured to carry more than they should. Thank you for spending this time with me today. Before we conclude, permit me to briefly introduce myself. I am Mrs. Maryann Ojotule Charles, a student counselor at the National Open University of Nigeria, a professional counselor, wellness practitioner, researcher, and educator committed to supporting people through every stage of life, from childhood and adolescence to education, relationships, career development, emotional wellness or well-being, recovery, faith, and lifelong personal growth. I'm also the founder of Nurture and Thrive Therapy, where we transform counseling knowledge and research into practical, everyday conversations that help individuals flourish, strengthen families, and contribute to healthier communities. Like I said earlier, if you find today's episode valuable, please subscribe to the channel, share it with someone who may benefit, and join us on our social media platforms as we continue learning, growing, and healing together. Once again, I'm Maryann Ojotule Charles, and this is Nurture and Thrive Therapy, where healing begins with understanding, growth is nurtured with wisdom, and every life is valued. Until our next conversation, take good care of yourself. Please take good care of someone else too, and never stop nurturing hope. God bless you, and see you again soon. Bye for now.